Welcome to Parc Ferm, the Canadian Formula One podcast. We talk race reviews, news from the paddock, and bring you everything from the world of Formula One. And now your hosts, Drew, Walker, Ed, and Tomas.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Parc Ferm, the Canadian Formula One podcast. Back here with the boys, as per usual. Got Drew, Thomas, Edward. My name is Walker. We are here talking about the Qatar Grand Prix. We had a little bit of everything. We got a new champion, officially. We got heat. We got tires. We got dust. We got a little bit of everything this weekend. What was a pretty entertaining and competitive race. Lots to cover, lots to talk about. Who wants to kick us off? Get us started on a little recap. Ed, how's that connection? You in?
Yeah, I think I'm good this time. I'll try not to make any weird faces for this time around. The race in general, I really enjoyed it. Lots of different things that have happened. The track in itself was pretty much the enemy of every single driver on track. A lot of them all had issues with track limits. I suppose they made some changes midway through the race in terms of the track limits, so that was a big issue. The heat was another thing too, but we'll talk about that later. And they had a lot of wind issues, the track being dirty with a lot of dust. But all in all, a really fantastic race for me because it's very eventful. Everyone needed to be on their A game in order to perform. Sprint race alone we have a new winner of sorts, and Oscar Piastri, and we saw Max Verstappen not be able to perform, and I'm sure Thomas was over the moon when he saw that. And all in all, the race in itself was really, really fun to watch. Thomas, I pass it on to you because I did just say that Verstappen didn't win the sprint race.
Yeah, so this Grand Prix, the quali was fucking perfect, 10 out of 10, and I loved it. There was so much events with the tires, with the change up on the grid position. As that you said, everyone had to be on their A game with the pit stops. Lots of different strategies. It was very, very entertaining. I wish every race was like this. I wish we would have. At first I wasn't sure how I feel about the whole tire strategy, but I really like it because it maybe not the X amount of laps they can only do, which was 17 or 18. I wish, they could do more or less, but they would have to at least stop 3 times. I think having a 3 pit stop strategy would be very, very entertaining. But yeah, I loved it. Drew?
Well, yeah, like you guys had already mentioned, there's a bunch of things that that the drivers and teams had to play against this week. And, the track temperatures being a big portion of this, having to pick up tire strategy, dealing with the wind and some of the dust, the sand. And I think, speaking of dust, one of the dustiest parts about this race was the first corner watching, and I hate to say this because I love him to death, but Uncle Louie was just pulling a fucking dumb one. That was the dustiest thing on track was his actions in that first corner. And I watched a couple of reviews and some statistics on that, and Lewis Hamilton, out of the 300 plus races that he's done in his career, has only exited on first lap accidents 6 times, which would equate to less than 2%. That being said, he's a pretty good first lap kind of driver. He understands spatial awareness, and I don't know if it's just a total of frustration or the heat or what was getting to him. Pressure, who knows? But he made a bad move, and unfortunately it cost Mercedes a little bit in the race. Actually, it took one car out when they're in a fight for second place with Ferrari, and with Carlos's car not starting, Mercedes had a big opportunity to make up some points, and unfortunately with a dusty move like that. He put Mercedes in a bad spot that they didn't need to be, unnecessarily going into that corner a little too aggressive. But it is what it is. It made for a super entertaining race. Watching Mr. George Russell go from plumb last all the way back up in the course of 50 what odd laps was wildly entertaining, and it really showed some serious pace on that Merc, which was really nice to see. And watching both of the McLaren boys run a show was super, super entertaining. But that's all I got for at least for this first half. What do you got, Walker?
So I think, Drew, you were talking about Hamilton and George going into that first corner, and I remember hearing one of the radio messages that they were doing the formation lap, and Lewis felt a little angsty with his team and the engineer on the radio, saying that he felt like he was just kind of left out there to hang to dry with those soft tires that he started on. And I think maybe some of that angst carried over into the first corner, thinking that if he does not make a move on the first corner or first lap and really gain a position, that he's just going to be toast after 5 or 6 laps. And I think maybe that might have led to some of that decision making or some of that impulse to really make that turn. That's just my guess. But otherwise, I think it was a really interesting race. I want to talk about it a little bit more regarding the tire sprints or the stints, how many laps they could do on each tire. You had the heat playing a major role, which I don't think we were really attuned to during the actual race itself. I know Sargent had some issues and couldn't finish the race, but then hearing all the reports afterwards of everyone getting out and fainting and being dehydrated and stuff like that, and the whole discussion about whether a race like that should be allowed to go, considering kind of the speeds that they're doing and the equipment that they're working with. Something else that we're going to talk about. And then we had Max, right? We talked about this last week, Drew. I think you were saying how cheesed you'd be if you clinched a championship on the sprint race, and here we are with that sprint race. I mean, he didn't even win, but he still clinched it because Checo couldn't get his shit together, which is a whole other story, right? So lots going on here, lots of storylines, lots to discuss. I do want to go back to that sprint race quickly and talk about Piastri. And, it's his first win, right? Is there an asterisk next to that win? If you're Piastri, do you count that as your first win? Or is that just kind of like a half win?
He will count that as a win if he doesn't ever win. If he actually wins a real Grand Prix, he'll be like, no, this is my first win. But if he doesn't win anything else in his career, he'll be like, I still won a race. So it depends, I guess, is my answer.
So put yourself in that position. You're in there, you're a rookie season, you win how many races or how many laps was it? Actually racing 13 laps after the safety car, something like that, 12 laps. Are you walking away saying yes, I'm a Formula One race winner?
Yes. Short answer.
Yes.
I think he will say that. I think in the course of his career, he won't look back and this won't be counted as a GP win. The way that they're going to have to start counting races and wins is going to be different since we have the sprints, because a sprint race, meaning still a race, but they're going to categorize wins and then Grand Prix wins. Because if you have 5 or 6 of these sprint races throughout a year, you could technically, quote unquote, win 30 races in a year if you win all of them plus the Grand Prix, right? Do you know what I mean? So they're just going to have to categorize them a little bit differently. But I think in a short answer, yeah, a win's a win. I think just the fact that you're driving an F1 car means you've kind of won something,
Anyone else? Thomas, you got something to add to that? Would you count it as a win? Would you be up there celebrating, making sure you don't break a trophy?
You know what? That's wow. Okay. No and yes is my answer. I don't think it's a real win. It's not a GP win, as Drew would say. I wouldn't count it as a win. Yeah, he won the sprint race, but in my eyes, it doesn't count. It's a sprint race. It doesn't seem fair, or it doesn't seem. I don't even know how to put it. It just doesn't seem right to count this sprint race win as an actual win. So
okay, Thomas,
Okay, but if he takes as a win himself, as what you were saying, fine, that's up to him. In my eyes, I don't see it as a win. That's what
I'm going to
trying
put this in a different way. Let me ask you this question differently. If you were on Tinder and you were doing online dating, would you put Formula One race winner in your online dating profile?
Yeah, I think I would.
There you go. Joe changes his answer. This is why I had to ask the question in a different way, right? Just saying.
Good point.
I mean, to quote the great Dominic Toretto, it doesn't matter if you win an inch or a mile, winning's winning. There you go.
Fair enough. So what's more satisfying to him, do you think? That second place podium after the race, after one of the hardest races of the year, or a 13 lap sprint win?
Oh, second place.
Second place.
Yeah, second place. All right, fair enough. Topic concluded. As we mentioned, lots of highlights during the race. Anything stand out for you? Drew, you just talked about the little mix-up at the first corner. Anything else sticking to your mind that you want to highlight this race this weekend from?
Yeah, you know what? Hand out to all those dudes in all those cars. Like we had Fernando Alonso like screaming at his pit wall, being like, "When I come in for a pit, can you guys throw a bucket of ice cold water on me? Like, is that doable?" That's how old he is, because like that used to happen in F1, like circa 1960s and stuff like that. That being said, hats off to all those dudes, man. They all did something absolutely incredible. I was watching some of the post-race interviews, and Baby Stroll was talking about like passing out in some of the corners, right, with the blood pressure going down, and like he's like, I don't like would come to on like the other half of a corner. So like those guys were doing some pretty dangerous stuff. Esteban Ocon's puking in the car like while he's driving a Formula One car. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like when I'm puking, bro, I'm outie. Like that's a wrap on my night. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going out partying and I start puking, bro, it's over. So I don't know how one could continue. He was, what do you say, between 16 and 17 laps deep, and the guy's puking in an F1 helmet. Like I could be in the comfort of my own home puking in my toilet, and I'm like, this is it. We're outie for tonight. So, big ups to all the guys. I think that's a super dangerous thing that they're doing. And I know the FIA and Formula One's going to look into not having any Qatar races in October. They're probably going to push that towards the end of the calendar again. But that being said, like it was a great race. There was a lot of overtaking. It was a battle of who could stick it out the best. It was a very impressive race by all the guys. So hats off to the teams. Ed, what do you got, bud?
For me, it was the comeback of George Russell. Like he got taken out first corner, lights out, and he ended fourth. Like that guy just shows how much metal that guy has. Like he tested himself, and on top of all of that, like everything that he had to go through the entire grid, how many pit stops he had to do, managing his tires, and then the heat. So for me, like what he did just kind of like solidifies that Mercedes did a good job bringing him in, and he will be the future of the Mercedes team, the Silver Arrows. Thomas?
I love the race. The whole thing. What stood out to me, again, surprise, is to all of us, Max won. What was it, like 23 seconds ahead? The crash where Hamilton was acting a little bit like a baby. The class, there was no class. I got taken out by my own teammate when he's the one that caused the accident. The highlights that really stood out to me that no one probably talks is Alfa Romeo scored points in both cars, which is fucking awesome. Fernando Alonso, again, he did all right considering the conditions, what it was at the track. And then Stroll in quali or practice where he shoved his trainer, was caught on camera as well. That was, me and Drew were talking about this briefly, and it's just so not cool to do that, and when your dad owns the team essentially, and you treat your trainer like that, like, you're supposed to be more professional than this other guy. But anyways, love the race. Walker?
So let's talk about the temperament a little bit, because, we talked about Lewis losing it a little bit in the car. We talked about Stroll having a moment. But, we look at other sports. You look at like football, hockey, baseball. We got guys breaking bats, guys like berating like their offensive line, defensemen. Like we have these other, more, I guess, traditional sports where, guys are competitive, they lose their cool, and, they're given it a pass, right? Is it because of just because it's more European, or because motorsport is just motorsport, that we don't offer the same leniency to some of these guys who are probably, just as high performing, or place just as much pressure on themselves to perform and win as we would, like if we saw that in a dugout and someone smashing a bat, for the most part, it's just like part of the game. Somebody gets frustrated, gets it out of their system, and moves on, right? So is this something that just doesn't belong in motorsport, or are we a little harsh on guys for making like an off the cuff comment, half a second after they're in an incident, right? Or Stroll gets out of the car and he's frustrated because he did a shit job again, and his trainer is just someone there who happens to be there to take the brunt of it.
You know what? Thomas and I were talking about this beforehand, and like, I get it. And like, some of these guys are allowed to be pissed. And like, if a guy grabs a bat or grabs a hockey stick, breaks it over the net or something like that, dude, I get it. You know what I mean? But like, you don't see them skate to the bench or go into the dugout and then push their trainer or their coach. You know what I mean? Like, who they take that anger out on, even if they go into the interviews afterwards and be like, oh, my teammate did this or whatever, they don't do that. Like, they still don't ever talk shit about their own team, their coaches. They don't push or shove their coach. Like, the respect level for their own team, and like, that supersedes everything. And I think that's kind of where they're going with that. Like, when you see Christian Horner talk shit about like Toto Wolff, or when you see Max Verstappen talk shit about Lewis Hamilton, dude, that's sports. I get that. That's fine. You can do all that stuff. But like, I was going to say, you don't see Christian Horner talking shit about Checo, but that definitely happens. But yeah, like, I just think that there's a level of class that needs to exist within their own team and their own ecosystem in order for these guys. And that's the thing too, dude, there's 20 of them in the whole sport. It's not like you have a team of 26 and these guys are like interchangeable. You know what I mean? They're not Danny Ricciardo. They're not just interchangeable all willy-nilly like that. But like, I just think there needs to be a respect level given to their own teammates in order to perpetuate like the classiness, like you mentioned, of like motorsport. And it's just like, it's an expectation given. Is it because it's a European thing? I don't know. Maybe ish, because it's Grand Prix, it's French as fuck. It's got, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
So I have a follow-up question to that then. Are these drivers in an unfair position because the public has essentially access to their live radios, right? That's like the equivalent of having every other athlete live mic'd throughout the gameplay, right? And now it's the FIA, it's F1, it's Liberty Media that gets to decide which messages get played out to the public, right? So how much shit would we hear if every single athlete on every team was mic'd up and we could tune into their commentary live during a game?
Man, I don't know. Some of those hockey players, dude, when you got those mics that are dangling over top of the ice, like, I don't know if you've been to a hockey game, because I sure as hell haven't. Like, you can hear those guys. They're not hiding anything that they're saying.
No, but they talk a lot of shit, and it's fine. It's
tons of shit.
It's like part of it's part of the game. It's just part of what it is.
For sure.
It's not all broadcast live on TV and cherry picked by the broadcaster to decide what is broadcast and what isn't.
I get where you're coming on this, and I understand that, like, the FIA and Liberty Media have like a game to play because they have to like play nicey nice. They still have to make it entertaining, because really what sport's all about is entertainment value. Who's going to watch, who's tuning in. They want to make it fun, entertaining, and juicy enough. But on the other side of it, like, the sport still needs to stay classy. And like, did Baby Stroll have a little bit of a temper tantrum? Yeah, 100%. Did like Logan Sargent puss out? 1,000%. Guy's a bitch ass. Just saying. They all went through the same shit. The guy's a bitch ass.
I mean, my take on it is that don't you can talk as much smack as you want. Like, even with your team, your strategist, it doesn't matter. Like it's part and parcel of being a competitor. And if you get to the extent of being physical with your trainer, that's I don't know. For me, that's a no. The guy's there to support you. But the other side of that too is that Max Verstappen, I think it was a few years back, he had an altercation with Esteban Ocon, that he ran after Esteban Ocon in Parc Ferme and then shoved him. Same thing with Michael Schumacher when he had instances and issues with David Coulthard. Like he literally looked for David Coulthard in the pits, and then just like wanted to start a fight with him. So I mean, at the height of competition, yes, it's going to come out that emotions are going to be out, but to the extent of like shoving or pushing or throwing fists, I don't think so. Like you're held to a higher regard because you're the face of the company, you're the face of the team. If you're going to get to that extent that you're even hitting on your own team, nah, that's a big no for me. Other drivers, other teams, fine. It's the passion. But your own team, your own trainer, the one that's keeping you, fit, keeping you up to date, and making sure that you're good. Yeah, Stroll, that's a no. I mean, at this point, I think that's the final nail in the coffin. That guy should be, taken out of the grid. Like, just like Latifi, take them out. They're gone. We don't need them anymore. Sorry.
I agree with Drew and Edward what they said. They're held to a higher standard, shoveling anyone or punching anyone or doing anything physical, whether it's your own teammate or another driver. I think that's a huge no. You got a problem, be a fucking man and fucking talk to him. If you have to show fucking fists, you're not a man. You're fucking losing control. So calm the fuck down. Use your words. Don't use your fucking fists to prove a point, because at the end of the day, you're gonna look like an asshole. That's all I have to say.
Stroll,
So for the record,
if you're listening,
I think you guys were all wrong.
Stroll, if you're listening, leave F1, please. Give us, someone else.
Hey,
give Liam Lawson.
Ed, that's our best chance.
Ed.
That's our best chance at a sponsorship, buddy.
Yeah,
Come on.
bro. What are you
Come
doing?
on.
No,
What are you doing?
I'm done.
How do you think we're gonna get an invite? I'm editing that out. You're an idiot.
Edward has.
Edward's
unfortunately
now
decided to
buying
leave the
all
show.
of the tickets to Montreal next year. Thank you. Just saying.
What I was going to say, I think you guys were all wrong. I think Stroll is catching it a little bit harder than anyone else would, because he's Stroll and because he has a bit of a history of being a little bitch. So that said, if this was Max, if this was Fernando, if this was like Michael back in the day, you gave those examples, Ed, like I think anyone else gets a little bit more of a pass than Stroll does. And I think heat of the moment, we don't know what their relationship is like. We don't know what like their friendship and how close they are. We all have those moments where we get just like close friends or whatever. They get in our face, we get in a disagreement. Like, it's never, to Thomas's point, you always want to use your words like an adult, but that doesn't always happen, right? And I think he's catching it a little bit hard for something that happened in the heat of the moment. Are we done with Stroll? Edward,
we're done, but I
Yeah, we're
disagree
done.
with your point.
That's fair. We're allowed to disagree. We don't always have to agree. Here's something else we might disagree on. Tire stints. I personally really enjoyed having Max stint on tires. I thought it made the race a little bit more interesting. It invited a different type of strategy. I liked seeing the pit stops because there's always room for error in a pit stop. There were more undercuts, more overcuts. I kind of liked it. Is this something that should tire stints replace the sprint race? Or
Yes.
should they just be included in more races or just in races in general?
I think they need to experiment with it. I think that's like, the way that I guess Pirelli just got signed on as a total tidbit here, as a new factoid. Pirelli got signed on again. And I think that, to experiment with this might not be a terrible idea. Just like they experimented with the sprint race, I think introducing this on some level isn't awful, because like I agree with you wholeheartedly at Walker. I think that it added a completely new element, and they sprung it on the teams. Like no one had an idea going in, so like it was a on the fly strategy kind of idea going in. It's not like they knew all year that this was going to happen. So yeah, I think that it was it definitely added a new element in it. The safety is obviously a huge portion of it, and they're going to avoid any sort of this heat issue going forward, which is why they brought this in anyway. But I think it was just something new, something different, and it forced the teams to kind of think on their feet. You got to see the realities of their abilities and inability to call strategy on the fly. So I think that was kind of hot.
I personally loved it. I thought it was great idea. It made the race way more interesting, switched up everything. I wish maybe there was, instead of 3 stops, a mandatory 4 stops, and maybe I wish that there was essentially no limit on how long they can use the tire, but they would have to stop, at least 4 times and no later than 5 or 10 laps before the end of the race. I get why they did that for heat and all that stuff. This is just my own personal take. Yes, I loved it very much. There was lots of variety in the race, lots of different strategy, and it would be very interesting to see if it would be very interesting to see this continue on.
Well, I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to even out the field, because for the past how many races, we know that Red Bull, Max Verstappen is going to win. That's 100%. But with this additional, like, I would say it's the chance card in Monopoly we're in. Hey, this is what's going to happen. And it normalizes and equalizes everyone, because it's an issue that they have to deal with. So now it boils down to the team and how they're going to respond. Are they going to be able to adapt to the current change or the additional stop that they have to do? And it just makes, again, just like what everyone's been saying this entire podcast, is that it made the race very interesting. It made the race very exciting. So yeah, I am 100% on the same boat. Let's continue doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I don't know how it would fit in with their sustainability agenda. We just were going through a bunch of races or proposed races where we were limiting the number of tires that we were going to use during a race weekend, and now all of a sudden we're saying you have to use exactly this many. So I think they would have to figure out a way to bridge the gap between those two strategies. But I definitely enjoyed the element that it added to the race, and I thought it brought a lot more interest to it, because some races are just like, you got 1 pit stop, maybe 2, and you're just like, the rest of it is just, a procession, right? So I like the element it brought to it. We touched on the heat, because of the tires. There's a safety aspect. How aware do you think the teams were of their drivers' conditions? And at what point do you think it would have been on the teams to call in drivers? And at what point do you think it would have been on the FIA to call the race, given the current conditions and how it was affecting them? Drew?
I don't think there was any sort of miscommunication. Like right off the get-go, Fernando Alonso was complaining about the heat, saying he was on fire. This was sub 10 laps. So I knew that the heat was going to be an issue. And when the stewards and governing bodies kind of mentioned to everybody, like, hey, listen, we got to be changing tires at this amount maximum because the heat and the dag is just so high, that, this was just going to be a snowballing effect. And I don't know if the guys knew to what level this was going to be happening. But, of the thousands of messages, radio messages that go back and forth between all the drivers and their teams, there was probably no miscommunication going on there. And I'm sure that, Esteban Ocon puking was probably very audible in some of those messages as he's trying to talk or gasp for breath, or these guys We're talking about, the heat coming out of the car when they were following closely behind me, that the dirty air that they were breathing in the mask, they just said felt like fire as they were breathing in. And, these guys were really put through the ringer this week. And I just don't think that the FIA knew what they were getting into, and Formula One knew exactly to the extent. I think because of how commercial all this is now and how safety is a huge proponent in everything that they're doing and going forward, I think that, they would have called this race prior to, but once you're going, it's hard to stop a big boat from going forward. And so I think that, next time that they're just going to avoid this altogether by hosting the race. If they do it in Qatar again, hosting the race at a different time of the year where the temps are just going to be a lot less. What do you got on this, Thomas?
I agree. The heat was an issue. I didn't, me watching it personally at first, I didn't realize how big of an issue was. And then, like you said, seeing Alonso, seeing Ocon, seeing Sargent, I'm like, holy shit, like these guys are, it's bad, when they're complaining, like you said, throwing up, complaining, is water, can you guys throw water on me? It's insane. Do I think they miscommunicated, or if they should have stopped the race? No, I think what they did the right call, and I'm hoping the driver was really really in a bad state to the point where they were literally passing out. Which I think Drew, you mentioned Stroll was almost at that point where he was passing out on corners. That does cause a huge safety concern, and that was a risky move with Stroll or with anyone else. I mean, again, if you're driving a car at 250 kilometers an hour, 300 kilometers an hour, and you're throwing up in your helmet, that's a safety concern, right? I get it. They're the top 20 drivers in the world. They want to push through, but there has to be a limit somewhere. So this was risky. Thank God it ended the way it ended, with no one getting hurt or seriously injured or anything like that. But yeah, next time they definitely should push this back and take heat a little bit more seriously. And yeah, Drew or Edward.
I mean, they should have gotten the information from just the tires alone. Like, they were having heat issues, so you can only imagine what the drivers are going through. I mean, yes, sub 10 laps in, Alonso was complaining, but when I saw Sargent actually stop the race, like we call him so many names, like he's a bitch or all that stuff, but like when you see a driver give up because of exhaustion, that for me, that should have told the FIA there's something wrong, we need to stop this. I think they had a massive miss on that.
Yeah, Drew, don't be so judgmental.
Edward, I
Fucking
agree with
asshole.
you 100%, and I was telling this to Drew, and Drew was disagreeing with me on this point. I'm all for it too. Once a driver pulls out, doesn't matter how good or shit he is. If he's in F1, he has some sort of skill or something. But yeah, FIA should have been on
Yeah,
that.
they messed up on that one. And I think they're gonna take this seriously next time around, that if there's any issue of like temperature affecting the drivers, or even something that's causing some type of discomfort, that there is health issues that are coming out, or health responses, like they should stop the race. Like, it only takes one mistake. Like, for example, with Stroll, he passes out in the corner, and then maybe he plants his foot on the accelerator and goes straight into the wall, and then offs himself. Now what?
That escalated quickly.
Well, I think so. A couple of things. I think if the FIA gets a message from Stroll saying that I passed out down the straight or in the corners, whatever, it wasn't even down the straight; it was in the corners. Yeah. Like, fuck, that's like the worst place to do it, right? In terms of car control. So I think if they get that message, it should have been incumbent on them to pull the driver. Now it's it's hard because, at what point do you pull a driver? At what point do you then sacrifice a team's success because you're stepping in to ensure their safety, right? Is it becoming unconscious? Is it puking in your helmet like Ocon did? Is that the bar? Understanding what the bar is, I think is key to really,
I don't know about you guys,
what
but
to do next.
I never pull out. You got to leave it in as long as you can.
And that's why you're in the position you're in right now.
Just saying, you can't pull. What are you, a loser? You just gotta keep it in. What's wrong with you,
Drew? That's 10 out of 10 joke.
Should I just walk out that door again? Because
I digress.
You know what? I'm about to pull a fucking Logan Sargent and just quit. Given the
as long as you don't pull out, buddy.
As long as I don't. Buddy, I'm about to pull out the plug. It's gonna happen. Well, thanks for derailing that important, timely conversation, Drew. Really appreciate it, as per always. So just we just took a pause right now because we don't know what we're talking about. Formula One is taking a pause next week on our way to Austin for the U.S. Grand Prix. Always a great track. Really quickly, what are we looking forward to in a couple of weeks? Thomas?
America, fuck yeah, Logan Sargent's gonna fuck up again. Let's go. Hopefully he won't pull out of the race. Anyways, America, that's what I'm looking forward to. Seeing what they're gonna have to offer, if they're gonna do any sort of heat strategy like they did here. I know the heat is obviously different from Qatar to America, but I'm looking forward to some goddamn good old American racing, and hopefully Max not winning. Drew?
Do you guys know what's going to go on? Or are they going to pull a Miami move? Are they going to have the country version of LL Cool J doing the theme songs to all these drivers or something? Is T Swift and the Swifties going to open up for the Circuit of the Americas race? What's going to happen here? I don't know what the plan is and what America's got on deck. I'm actually looking forward to it. The fact that there's 3 races in the States is wildly entertaining now. Obviously the format, that good old F1 is blowing up, and I think that there's an opportunity for the FIA to solidify some of these new fans in the North American realm, and COTA is definitely a place to do that. So I like the track. It's always a little bit of a entertaining race with COTA, and I'm looking forward to it. I think that Red Bull's, Maxi Poo-Poo's got this wrapped up again. Unfortunately, Thomas, I'm sorry that I saw that little smirk, because I know it's not what you want to hear, but I think that's the reality right now. And what do you got on this one, Eddie?
I actually just have a question. Is Danny Ric going to be back for this race?
Ooh, fantastic question. It depends on how much he's doing with that right hand. You know what I mean? Is he giving it a rest or is he giving it a tug?
We'll never know, and I don't want to know. But honestly, going back to the question, I have a feeling that he will come back. He does have some businesses in the US, and I think this should be a good race for him to come back and show it that he is the right decision for 2024 in the AlphaTauri seat and not Liam Lawson. But yeah, we'll see. That's really what I'm looking for. And also the McLarens. Are they going to continue with what they're doing right now and taking it to Red Bull?
Those guys are the real deal. Those McLaren cars are those are the fucking real deal. To see Oscar Piastri just running an absolute clinic with that car. He's driving like he has something to prove, which I guess in theory they all do. But him, I don't know. He's so stoic about the way that he drives and the way he talks afterwards. He's just so focused on the W, and he's very matter of fact when he talks to talks to all the announcers and the interviewers and interviewees and all that stuff. He's not very eloquent in how he talks and how he, tells stories and explains the situation. He's a driver's driver, and I'm looking forward to seeing him mature in a papaya car. What do you got on this one, Walker? What are you excited about? What makes you excited about Coda?
Great track, big event, but really I'm looking forward to the battle for the number twos. Checo and Hamilton still have something to figure out for that second spot in Drivers' Championship. Mercedes still has some work to solidify the second place in the constructors. So I think that's where my focus is going, really looking at those battles and seeing how that plays out and how each team is going to support their driver to achieving those goals, right? Is Red Bull and Max really going to stand behind Checo to help him secure number two? And same thing with Mercedes, right? Does Louis get any preferential treatment to help him secure extra points? And how is Russell going to like that, even though he's nowhere in the championship, right? He doesn't really have a place in it this year, but he's definitely got that competitive spirit where he doesn't like to concede a lot. And I think part of that is just being a competitor. So seeing how the battle for the number two position play out, that's what I'm looking forward to. Thomas, did you go yet? You didn't go yet, did you?
I did, but I wanted to say something to Drew's point when he mentioned McLaren's. Just a question for all of you guys. Did you, or beginning of the year, did you expect McLaren to be as good as they are, or no?
No.
Just out of curiosity, that's all.
Not at all.
Not given where they were last year.
No, they
And at the beginning of the year, they didn't look that good either.
They didn't.
Right? It was really kind of midway through that they finally brought some upgrades that seemed to really suit the drivers. So got a McLaren. They've done a fucking bang up job, and it makes next year look even more exciting. If McLaren can really come to the table, Mercedes can get back in the game. You already have Red Bull up there, and even Ferrari, right? I think you have 4 teams that could potentially fight for the top. It could be a good year.
And 4 teams with like a little bit of pedigree and some heritage. You know what I mean? Like all these guys know how to win and know what it takes to win. And you said it bang on. Like these are 4 guys all gunning for the top next year. You know what I mean? And Red Bull's got an opportunity to maintain this, but like nobody's slowing down for anybody.
No, it's going to be great. Let's wrap it up. We have got Canada's favorite game. Name that sponsor. You know how it works. I'm going to name a sponsor from each team or from a team. You got to tell me what that company does and who they sponsor. First up, bit of a softball. Maybe. Snapdragon.
They are on McLaren and Snapdragon. It's some sort of technology something. Fuck. I don't know. I'm going to stop it there.
Okay.
It's
who's next?
some sort of,
McLaren antivirus something program or software or something like that.
No, they are a semiconductor company. They make chipsets, and yes, McLaren.
Ed, you got closest with what they do, but they are on Mercedes.
Okay.
Mercedes.
What do they do?
They make chips, like little microprocessors, chips, like what Ed said.
Fucking
I said he was
nerd.
half right.
The Asian guy wouldn't know that answer. Eh? The fucking guy.
I'd take that. That's a compliment for me.
this one.
I like that.
He's a good Asian. He passed the test.
I bring honor to my family.
So good.
All right.
I had to.
All right.
Go ahead.
Second one, Drew, just fucking contain yourself for this one, please. Velocity Black.
Oh no.
Mercedes and logistics company. I'm gonna do that.
Drew,
I'm
you want to take a shot?
What do you want from me, man? I'm fully contained, bro. All the containment.
Well, would you like to guess? Can you take a contained
It's
guess?
going to be on Alfa Romeo, and it's definitely in logistics.
Okay. Ed?
I don't know what to say at this point.
But team in a fucking industry, bro. It's really not that hard.
Tech company, McLaren.
Okay, so tech company is a little bit too broad. I'm not going to accept that answer. Okay, fair enough. Wrong. You okay, Drew?
For the blooper reel. Come on, Drew. Do it.
Okay. So about Velocity Black. Velocity Black deploys cutting-edge technologies and human experts to transform how high-performance people discover and enjoy their world. We help our members do and be more in the digital age.
So they don't know what they do.
They don't.
Yeah, that's very vague.
It's like something for rich people. This is from their website.
Gotcha. Okay.
We are pioneering the future of luxury lifestyle. We harness human and machine intelligence to enable our members to live extraordinary
AKA a
lives.
Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds very like Scientologist.
Yeah. We curate the best life has to offer. Then our engine, our AI engine, puts it at our members' fingertips. We've reimagined discovery, access, and booking for 21st century life. Welcome to the conversational interface. So who the fuck knows what they do? But they sponsor Aston.
Okay.
Which makes sense. The Strolls are probably heavy users of Velocity Black.
Oh, yeah. Big time users. Almost addicts, if you will.
Yeah. Big, fast black users. All right, everybody.
Continue yourself.
We'll end it there. This has been Parc Ferm, the Canadian Formula 1 podcast. We are here every week. Next week, we got a week off of racing, but we'll be back here with another episode. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, leave a comment, share with your friends, hit up the Discord, and we'll see you next time.
To Parc Ferm, the Canadian Formula 1 podcast. We talk race reviews, news from the paddock, and bring you everything from the world of Formula 1. And now your hosts, Drew, Walker, Ed, and Tomas.